Fortnite just announced the new FNCS format for 2025. We have an increase in prize pool, we have a completely new format, and it's starting next month. I'm going to go over everything you need to know to make sure you're on board with how it's going to work. There's going to be a lot of people really happy and some people really upset. Also, we now have NA splitting into 2 separate regions again, but instead of doing East and West, they're doing West and Central. I also want to talk about what is going on with Peterbot now having no teammates and needing an entirely new trio. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Before we get into talking about FNCS, we have to talk about the new team swap very quickly. Peterbot is yet again on a new trio. I am not kidding. Peterbot is no longer playing with Poyo, Bolts, Rapid, any of them. He has a completely new trio. Peterbot is now playing with Acorn and Kanata, and we have the old trio of Poyo, Bolts, and Rapid going back together again. Honestly, at this point, I think Poyo, Bolts, and Rapid are better off playing together. They had no drama. They won their first tournament together. They were doing really, really well. It seems like a lot of people are starting to think that maybe Peterbot's the issue, and I don't think about skill, just maybe chemistry wise, maybe Peterbot just wants something that the team doesn't have, so he's trying out an entirely different trio. He's going to be playing alongside Acorn and Kanata. Now, this hasn't really affected any other teams. The only other major team swap worth mentioning is that Booga and Threats have dropped Reet, and they've now picked up Mero instead. So we have Booga and Mero back together again, which is super exciting. I feel bad for Reet, especially after that trio was doing really well. I don't know where Reet's going to end up though. Now, the big news, FNCS has been officially announced and it's technically starting next month, which is just insane. $8 million prize pool, so slightly higher prize pool than last year, which is a $7.6 million prize pool, so prizes aren't going down, which is awesome, but we have an entirely new format. A lot of you guys are really confused. I'm going to do my best to explain exactly what's going on. Now, there are some huge changes as well on top of this. We have NA being split back into 2 regions, but it's not NA East and West, it's NA West and Central. I'm extremely confused about this change. I'm not really sure who thought this was a good idea. Just geographically, if you look at North America, it makes so much sense to have it East and West with how the populations are split. Having West and Central means there's a lot of players who are in the parts of the East Coast of North America where there's a lot of them are still going to get really bad ping. So it's cool to see we have NA going back to 2 regions. This obviously will make NA smaller. I do think it will make NA less competitive again going forward. That storyline of NA versus EU has been really fun. There's obviously some phenomenal NA players like Peterbot, like Poyo, who can still dominate. I do think this will bring the skill gap of NA down a little bit, maybe, because a lot of pros are maybe going to go back to playing on NA West because it's more convenient for their home life. We have big pros like Poyo, like Batman Booga, like Reed, all these players who have moved from living somewhere on NA West, Epic Whale, to then compete on Central. I don't know if these guys will go back, but 2 regions means more people who have maybe given up on the game now because of high ping, because they played on NA West and didn't have the ability to move to Central. They might be competing more now, so it could increase the skill gap on NA, but most likely I don't think it will. I'm excited to see it going back to 2 regions. I just don't get why it's not East and West. This makes no sense to me. Let's talk about the new format and how it's starting in a few weeks. So on December 7th, we're going to have the FNCS trials. The whole point of this is you're going to be seeded into Division 1, 2, or 3 based on your placement in this tournament, which then depends on how you can play FNCS and what tournaments you play. They haven't announced exactly what's going on with divisional cash cups, but divisional cups are back. If you remember this back in the day, it was the contender champs division thing that we had in chapter 4. They're bringing that back, and what the trial is to get you one of those divisions without having to play the cash cup. So if you miss the December 7th trial, don't panic. You can still get to Division 1. You can still play FNCS. You just have to do it through the cash cups rather than getting it in one tournament. I'm guessing that means the lower tournaments won't have a prize pool most likely, whereas the Division 1 tournaments will. So you want to do really well in that tournament, lock in and get Division 1 as quick as possible. But if you miss it, it's not the end of the world. But we are going back to divisional cups for cash cups, and your division affects FNCS. So it's going to mean kind of like a longer process for FNCS. You can qualify just to play in it through the cash cups, but if you don't qualify, you can't play. There's no longer just getting a rank, then you can now queue up for FNCS. You need to get a division through playing the cash cups. I know a lot of people are going to like that. It makes it more competitive. It makes it feel more like a real esport, but I think it's also going to upset a lot of people who look forward every season to playing FNCS and maybe don't have the time to devote into every single cash cup. I see the pros and cons to this. If you have a good FNCS format, anyone who's not good enough, who shouldn't be in a higher division, will just get knocked out in the early rounds anyway, but it does make the cash cups feel a bit more exciting and lets us develop more storylines coming into FNCS. As far as how FNCS actually works, once you get Division 1, you are then going to be able to play in the play-in stages. There's going to be 2 rounds of this, each having 10 matches. Think of like more of a cash cup format, not FNCS. It's not set lobbies. Anyone in Division 1 can play. If you're on NA Central or EU, the top 99 teams are going to go through to the group stages. On all other regions, it's going to be 66. So this is pretty much the new version of the Opens for FNCS. If you make it through the play-in stages, you are then going to play in the group stages. There's 3 different group stages. The top 5 most consistent teams from each group are going to advance straight through to the finals, and whoever gets one of the 15 wins. So we're back to like a victory royale qualifying format, but we also have the consistency as well. Now, if you're panicking because if you don't make it out of play-ins, your FNCS is over, not quite. You do still have the last chance qualifier, and this is really weird. The last chance qualifier is actually open to Division 1, 2, and 3 players. So I know I talked about how you aren't able to play at the start of FNCS if you aren't in Division 1. You can still play in FNCS, but you have to play only in the last chance qualifier, and you're going up against people in Division 1, 2, and 3 as well. This lobby will conclude with the last chance lobby, where the victory hour winners of each match will earn their tickets to the major finals. So it's going to finish off with 3 set lobbies, and if you get one of those 3 wins, you go through the finals. That is going to be ridiculously intense. It's going to be super exciting to see who qualifies out of that, but knowing that if you mess up in just the first 2 play-in stages, you only have one of 3 spots on the whole region out of everyone playing to get to finals is going to be really tough. The finals seem super standard. It's going to be a 2-round tournament, 6 games on day 1, 6 games on day 2, nothing crazy there. But one of the big changes they've made with FNCS from this now, if you lock in a team for the first qualifier, if you want to play day 1 of the qualifiers, you are now locked to this team for the rest of the qualifiers and the group stages. You can only change teammates if you want to play in that last chance qualifier I just talked about. So players and teams like Peterbot, who are really struggling to stick together, once they play that first game of play-in stage day 1, they are locked. That is it. If they now have issues, maybe their chemistry's bad or they're not playing as well as what they thought, their only chance to make FNCS now, if they want to split up, is winning one of 3 spots against everyone else on the region. This is finally going to force Fortnite pros to actually really lock in, stick with a trio, and not split up, because no matter how bad your trio is, I guarantee it's better than the chance of trying to get one of those last chance qualifier spots. Fortnite also clarified that the regular cash cups, even though they're now based on your division, will not be region locked, but your division is only going to depend on each region. So if you get Division 1 on NA and you want to play EU, you have to start from the bottom of the division and work your way back up. You're not just automatically Division 1 in every single tournament. Now, while cash cups aren't region locked, you can still play them. You just have to get the division on each region. FNCS is. You can still only play FNCS on one region, which makes sense. I don't know if I made this clear with the group stages. You don't play in all of them. You only play on one. You get seeded into a group based on your placement, and that is your group. You don't get to play all 3. It's not like, you know, if you play the first one, you do badly, you drop down to the second one, you are seeded into one of them. So you really are only playing day 1 and day 2 of the pre-qualifiers. You might make it out of day 1, and then if you win a game in your group, you're already through to finals. So I'm not super sure why Fortnite is making the FNCS format shorter. From start to finish now, for when FNCS actually starts, it is only 18 days, which feels really weird. I kind of liked it when FNCS is a lot longer. I do get that the cash cups now tie into FNCS, so it's technically longer, but I would have liked to see this format maybe a little bit longer. It's going to be interesting to see teams just, you know, play the qualifiers, get, you know, first if they do, win 1 game of groups, and now they're already in finals. I guess it doesn't make sense for them to play the rest of the groups or the last chance qualifier, but I kind of miss the FNCS formats we used to have, where we had heats and we had the weekly qualifiers, and we got to see the pros go at it week on week. Now we don't really get to see the pros play that much before they're in grand finals if they're a good team. It's a cool format. I see what they're doing, and the fact the prize pool's gone up, even if only a little bit, I'm interested to see how it plays out. They have said this is going to be the format for all of 2025 as well. We have all of the FNCS dates that they're playing. They're all on the screen here. The only thing they haven't announced is when the actual LAN is going to be. But the last FNCS finishes at the end of August, so I'm guessing we'll have a LAN again around September-ish.